first. I see evil, I evil when I converse.
Not today, say.
This how God works. Play my position, what is given with no concerns.
Go, 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 go.
Set it off. Top of the morning, I'm gonna set it off. You living boring, I'm gonna set it off. Shooting, I'm scoring, I'm gonna set it off. Like soldiers torn, I'm gonna set it off. Son of God, no, I am not son of man. Blessings keep falling, the fingers keep coming in. I got you, but just know I'm texting like Uncle Sam. Left to the bank, you know that I'm coming in. We don't do it for the bands though, we don't do it for the clout. Legacy on the line, so I'm moving in and out. Seen good ones turn top dog, greedy ones get knocked off. I keep looking at the bench like I could never not ball. Coach keep me in the game, Curry deadly with the range. I keep looking in the mirror like, who is he? I'm insane. Who am I? He insane. Guess I ain't the one to blame. What's done is done, won't change. Time to live up to my name. Real will be real, fake gon' fall. Took time with this here, I'm made for a while. No sleep in the while, I won't fall. No sleep in the while, I won't lead out. I keep God first. I see evil, I evil when I converse.
Not today, say.
This how God works. Play my position, what is given with no concerns.
Go, 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 go.
Set it off. Top of the morning, I'm gonna set it off. You living boring, I'm gonna set it off. Shooting, I'm scoring, I'm gonna set it off. Like soldiers torn, I'm gonna set it off. Told my baby, meet me at the bank. Told my mama, I'ma break the trend. Locked in, I'ma change the weight. Working for my baby's kids. Hard times couldn't make the rent. Working hard couldn't save a cent. Lonely nights, just me and God. Swear to him, always made the ends. Grab a paper, see the news. Hate coming by the tools. Walk a mile in my shoes. Something you can never do. Got my back against the wall. Bet I always pull through. Who are you, who are you? Who are you, who are you? Sending shots, I block 'em. Superman with the moves. Rock 'em, sock 'em, drop, pop 'em. Play to win, never lose. Run it up, I top 'em. Play full belly too. I hip hop or pop 'em. Anything I could do. The real won't be real, fake gon' fall. Took time with this here, I made for a while. No sleep in the while, I won't fall. No sleep in the while, I won't lead out. I keep God first. I see evil, I evil when I converse.
Not today, say.
This how God works. Play my position, what is given with no concerns.
Go, 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 go.
Set it off. Top of the morning, I'm gonna set it off. You living boring, I'm gonna set it off. Shooting, I'm scoring, I'm gonna set it off. Like soldiers torn, I'm gonna set it off.
want to be my lover, yeah. I love it when she want to be my lover, yeah. My little baby girl rise on me. My little baby girl ride on me. Maria, 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 ah. Every time you're looking out for me. Every time you're looking out for me. Love you, ah, yeah, love.
Everything go from Maria, yeah, yeah. Sensibility, ah, yeah, yeah, yeah. Pretty girl like a Maria, Maria, yeah, yeah. Every time we meet some, every time be like, oh, Maria, Maria.
Every time you look up for me, come on, look up for me. Every time you look up for me, come on, look up for me. Every time you look up for me, come on, look up for me. Every time you look up for me.
She no island girl, she from Kilimanjaro, Kiliman, nah. She no island girl, she from Kilimanjaro, Kilimanjaro.
My little baby girl rise on me. My little baby girl ride on me. Maria, 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 ah. Every time you're looking out for me. Every time you're looking out for me. Love you, ah, yeah,
Everything go from Maria, yeah. Sensibility, ah, yeah, yeah. Pretty girl like a Maria, Maria, yeah, yeah. Every time we meet some, every time be like, oh, Maria, Maria. Ah, now you want to spend more time with me. Ah, do you want to be my wife, baby? I just want you in my life, baby. I like you, Sensibility, Maria, Maria. Every time be like, oh, Maria. Everything go from Maria, sensibility, yeah, yeah. Pretty girl like a Maria, Maria, yeah. Every time we meet some, every time be like, oh, Maria, Maria.
Every time you look at, come on, look up for me.
This show is going to be a very dark topic. Viewer discretion is advised. My dear friend BJ Edmore talked about something from Star Wars called a shadow point. A shadow point is something that occurs right before someone goes over into the dark side. And just like a Jedi can go over into the dark side, many children can more or less get mental illnesses such as dissociative personality disorder, and also borderline personality disorders and many other disorders when they've more or less been victims of sexual ritual abuse training, when they're in fatherless homes, and when they've been more or less molested over a period of time. Something happens to the mind when it's impacted by trauma. And many times, children, men and boys and girls, go through conditions called depersonalization and derealization. It appears in this show that those that should be the arbiters of light, like Brother Polite, the deceased Bishop Eddie Long, R. Kelly, and then also Dr. MalikYork, instead of being arbiters of light or consciousness, they are actually arbiters of darkness. And once they become arbiters of darkness, the kids that are impacted or more or less inflicted become broken with several schema afflictions. And because of that, you have more or less a toxic stew in relationships. We're going to talk about how the schema afflictions and how children from sexual abuse and molestation are impacted emotionally, and why fathers are so important in relationships, and why many women that have discarded their fathers or husbands for a myriad of reasons should reconsider and stay with their husbands. I want you to sit back and remember to enjoy this show. And I want you to remember this. If it ain't 7, it ain't kosher. If it ain't kosher, it ain't right. Family and mental health is important to the efficacy of children boys and girls, and also men and women. And when families are more or less broken or more or less shattered at a point, children also can be victims of a shattered point when they become toxic and might even cross over into the dark side. You will.
In the morning, you got me up all cause you need to talk. To 4 in the evening, wanna break up, say that you've had enough. I'm tired of talking, again and again, argue about everything. You are my darling, this kiss and make up, I know you wanna touch. You call me every night, call me every day, I just wanna get you alone now. Trust me when I say, we gon' be okay, we just gotta boom bada boom ba. I don't wanna fight, you know that I'm right. Baby, let me talk to your body. We gon' be okay, hear me when I say.
All right, listen, this is going to be a dark topic. It's one of those topics that many people won't touch or don't want to talk about. But it's been on my heart for a while, and I put a lot of time into it because many relationships are broken because some men and women have actually reached a shatter point. A shatter point occurs when the mind splits due to trauma. And many men and women, boys and girls have been impacted by sexual abuse and molestation. And when that happens, it tends to happen the most when fathers are not in the picture. We live in some very precarious times where fatherlessness is very normal for a lot of boys and girls. And we're going to explore in this expose several of the people that were supposed to be the arbiters of truth and light, like Eddie Long, Brother Polite, MalikYork. But also, we're going to look at more or less specifically R. Kelly, because R. Kelly was a predator, and he also was a more or less a victim. And a lot of times, these kids that are in these kind of relationships, they are impacted the most when their dads are not involved. So this topic is to more or less talk about something that's very necessary. We can talk about a lot of different things. We can talk about money. We can talk about finances. We can talk about relationships and all of that. But until we talk about mental illness, something that Kevin Samuels actually more or less addresses, everything else is null and void. Everything starts with the mind. So we're going to more or less look at these clips, and we're going to talk about Brother Polite, him being complicit in dealing with the minor. We're going to talk about Eddie Long allegations of child abuse. And I know some are saying, well, he's dead. Well, it does not more or less minimize the fact that children are more at risk in homes where they're not fathers, don't have fathers, but also masculine men. So we're going to look at this stream, and we're going to have a discussion. And if you've been impacted by sexual abuse because of fatherlessness, let's have a discussion because this is important. Mental health is important to
Years ago, I interviewed
family.
Kwesi Mfume, then the president of the NAACP. As between the presence of white racism and the absence of black fathers, I asked him, which poses the bigger threat to the black community? Without missing a beat, he said, the absence of black fathers. It was President Barack Obama who said, we all know these statistics, that children who grow up without a father are 5 times more likely to live in poverty and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in prison. The Journal of Research on Adolescence confirms that even after controlling for varying levels of household income, kids in father-absent homes are more likely to end up in jail. And kids who never had a father in the house are the most likely to wind up behind bars.
Just think about that. Just think about the perilousness and the brokenness in the black community because we don't have fathers. You know, many times men are discarded like paper tissue in our society and they're not valued. But imagine we lived in a time in a society where fathers were valued and fathers were given the credence that's necessary to protect their kids. A girl normally gets her greatest inspiration from her father. Her father is the one that more or less points her in the proper direction. But when a girl doesn't have a father, she's not only at risk of being exploited by predatory males, but also she's more likely to more or less be involved in promiscuous behavior. Boys that don't have fathers tend to act more emotional. When boys don't have the fathers, they're more at risk of more or less going to jail. And they tend to be more shiftless and aimless. Let's keep listening.
In 1960, 5% of America's children entered the world without a mother and father married to each other. By 1980, it was 18%. By 2000, it had risen to 33%, and 15 years later, the number reached 41%.
Think about that. This has become a social pandemic. A social pandemic. There was a time when our women and men conducted themselves in a more or less honorable way. But now, in 1960, 5% of kids had didn't have fathers. And see, this is very important because I told you that there are 7 steps that a man must go through in order to become an optimized male. And family is one of those things. Family is the epicenter to success in life, but also family is the epicenter to society. And so when kids don't have more or less fathers in their homes, it becomes very problematic. Look at these stats. 1960, 5% of kids didn't have fathers. 1980, 18%. 2000, 33%. And 2015, 41%. This is crazy. You can't build a strong family off of brokenness and mental illness. Keep listening.
For blacks, even during slavery, when marriage for slaves was illegal, black children were more likely than today to be raised by both their mother and father. Economist Walter Williams has written that, according to census data from 1890 to 1940, a black child was more likely to grow up with married parents than a white child. For blacks, out-of-wedlock births have gone from 25% in 1965 to 73% in 2015. For whites, from less than 5% to over 25%, and for Hispanics, out-of-wedlock births have risen to 53%.
And see, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about this ongoing exploitation that we see in families and relationships. There were times where families were more or less giving a higher level of credence and when families were more or less beneficial. But look at the stats. 1965, 25% of kids were more or less in homes. But now, in 2015, over 73% of children are born out of wedlock. How can we build vibrant and strong communities with this type of, like my man Tim Howard said, ridiculous numbers? And I agree, Tim, the numbers are ridiculous. It's ridiculous to know that our children are growing up in these broken homes. And I'm going to argue and say liberal policies such as feminism played a major role in it. You know, our women, unfortunately, some, not all, bit the bait And so with the sexual revolution, this is what you have now, the recompense of error. Our women getting with men that are not quality men. And because those men are not quality, unfortunately, many good black men are more or less put in that negative cesspool as well, which is unfortunate. All right, let's finish listening. All right.
What happened to fathers? The answer is found in a basic law of economics. If you subsidize undesirable behavior, you will get more undesirable behavior. In 1949, the nation's poverty rate was 34%. By 1965, it was cut in half to 17%, all before President Lyndon Johnson's so-called war on poverty. But after that war began in 1965, poverty began to flatline. From 1965 until now, the government has spent over $20 trillion to fight poverty. The poverty rate has remained unchanged, but the relationship between poor men and women has changed dramatically. That's because our generous welfare system allows women, in effect, to marry the government. And this makes it all too easy for men to abandon their traditional moral and financial responsibilities.
And you're right, Black Nizzle. I agree. Unfortunately, some or many of our women bit the apple. Unfortunately, shout out to the great women that decided to include the men in the homes. But unfortunately, some of our women did bite the apple, unfortunately. And because of that, now they are suffering the recompense of their error, because when you're married to the government, when the government is broken, then guess what? Your communities become broken as well. Black men and black women both were muse of society. We were broken together under Jim Crow racism. But unfortunately now, because I feel that some of our women have been more or less compromised, you're seeing black communities more damaged than they ever have been before, probably in human history. And we will have to more or less do the evolution to get the black community back to the point where it was in the past. Now, guys, to the ones that are listening, we got a small number, but please like, share, and subscribe. If you like what I'm doing, please cash out $7 Smalls. I decided to do this show because we talk about why our relationships are so more or less broken and damaged. But remember, some of our women are broken and damaged, boys and girls, because they've been victims of molestation and sexual abuse. And a lot of times that comes from being in fatherless homes. And unfortunately, it tends to be more or less be part of men that's supposed to be what I call arbiters of light, like the preachers, the conscious community, and teachers or whatever. These are the people that are supposed to be helping and more or less watching over our kids. But instead of watching over our kids, they're doing nasty and dangerous stuff to our children. And because of that, many of our kids have severe mental illnesses. And until they get that mental help, they will continue to be in a negative state of pain and despair. Keep listening.
Psychologists call such dependency learned helplessness. How do we know that the welfare state creates disincentives that hurt the very people we're trying to help? They tell us. In 1985, the Los Angeles Times asked both the poor and the non-poor whether poor women often have children to get additional benefits. Most of the non-poor respondents said no. However, 64% of poor respondents said yes. Now, who do you think is in a better position to know? Tupac Shakur, the late rapper, once said, "I know for a fact that had I had a father, I'd have some discipline, I'd have more confidence." He admitted
Look at that. And Tupac was right. Men bring structure. Men bring order. Men bring guidance. But here's the thing. Men also bring protection. Now, I'm not talking about weak men. I'm talking about masculine men. I'm talking about masculine men that stand on their principles, that are unwavering and uncompromising. Most predators will not deal with men that are strong and dominant. That's why, unfortunately, in the black church, and I grew up in the black church, I was a superintendent. I grew up Church of God in Christ, Pentecostal holiness. And a lot of times what I saw, and I'm not saying all of them were this way, some of these men were very manipulative. They would use terms like spiritual fathers where they would groom these boys. Not all, but they were really no different than some of the men in the Catholic Church as well. They would groom these boys for sexuality and sexual abuse. And see, when you have a masculine father, most masculine men can see through BS because men tend to think more linear and we tend to be more logical. Unfortunately, a lot of our women become, because they're emotional, they think through their feelings. Now, listen, guys, I want you to share this content because some of the women that you are dealing with and also some of the men that you are dealing with have been victims of more or less sexual abuse. Once again, as I said earlier, we can talk about money, we can talk about power, we can talk about status, we can talk about the bag. But until we get our minds straight And like my dear friend said from our podcast, Black girls getting their shift together. Until we get our shift together mentally, we will continue to be broken. So guys, please share this content. If you like what I'm doing, please cash out $7 Smalls. Just keep listening because this is going to be very important. Hold tight. It's very important. Can you guys hear me? Right, hold tight.
Began running with gangs because he wanted the things a father gives to a child, especially to a boy: structure and protection. Your mother cannot calm you down the way a man can, Shakur said. You need a man to teach you how to be a man. In my book, Dear Father, Dear Son, I write about my rough, tough World War II Marine Staff Sergeant dad. Born in the Jim Crow South of Athens, Georgia, he was 14 at the start of the Great Depression. Growing up, I watched my father work 2 full-time jobs as a janitor. He also cooked for a rich family on the weekends, and some...
And see, that's what's happening with a lot of our women. A lot of our women want masculine providers and protectors. But unfortunately, a lot of these men now, unfortunately, a lot of them are broken. They don't know how to change tires. They don't know how to change, work on cars. They don't know how to do anything. I grew up in the rural South. And I'm a highly educated man, but I still can do white-collar work, blue-collar work. I cut grass. I can fix my own cars if I need to. I'm an old-school educated brother. But unfortunately, a lot of the men that our women want, they're not getting those men because a lot of these men are broken. They're broken. They don't have the proper recourse to be strong and masculine men. And a lot of that is because, unfortunately, a lot of our women got with men that were unsavory. And those unsavory men have not taught their sons how to be strong and dominant. And now you see a cesspool of broken, toxic men and women because they've never seen what normal looks like. Keep listening. But yeah,
Hal managed to go to night school to get his GED. When I was 10, my father opened a small restaurant that he ran until he retired in his mid-80s. He was never angry or bitter and insisted that today's America was very different from the world of racial segregation and limited opportunity in which he grew up. Hard work wins, he told me and my brothers. You get out of life what you put into it. You can't control the outcome, but you are 100% in control of the effort. And before blaming other people, go to the nearest mirror and ask yourself, what could I have done to change the outcome? This advice shaped my life. Fathers matter. Until we have a government policy that makes that its first priority, nothing will change. I'm Larry Elder for Prager University.
To subscribe to our YouTube channel, click here. To help keep our videos...
Just for people that say...
And see, there was a time where fathers mattered. There was a time that it could be argued. There was a time where men mattered. But unfortunately, you don't see that now. See, when you don't have strong fathers, once again, your girls and boys are more at risk of predators like Mr. Polite. Now, we're going to talk about the 3 or the 4 of the major hitters. Brother Polite, once again, Eddie Long, even though he's deceased, Dr.MalikYork, and also we're going to talk about R. Kelly, who is a victim and a predator. Because, see, we could talk about all the time about what R. Kelly did, but nobody want to talk about R. Kelly being abused too. Now, I know this is a controversial topic, but R. Kelly is a predator, no doubt, and he should be excoriated for his behavior. But R. Kelly also was a victim. And so we don't talk about these things because we normally tend to see the man as the predator instead of seeing him as a victim as well. I want you to listen to what Lamont Hill said, because at one time he was under Dr. MalikYork.
Government policy that makes...
Hold on.
Situation, you was a student.
Yeah.
What came to your mind when you found out about the charges that was brought about him? Because I know you was probably one of these students at that time.
I had left Atlanta. I helped run. I helped run up one of the stores. So again, like I wasn't a casual. This is a Holy Tabernacle tattoo.
Now, I never
that's
heard
25
that
years old.
part.
Right. So just for people that say like, because you know people like to inflate that everybody in jail was a kingpin. Nobody was on the corner, right? You know what I mean? Like, so I'm just saying like I wasn't a disciple, but I wasn't a casual.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I ran MLK bookstore. There's two MLK bookstores. I helped run along with a bunch of folk ran MLK bookstore. The one off Ashby, the one right across the street from Philly's Finest Barbershop, and then I ended up helping start another one. I studied at Edgewood, the store that was on Edgewood Avenue. Before I got there, I was in Philly with Sajad and them at 52nd and Thompson Street. I used to go to the masjid there when Musa was there as the imam. So just the context. When I left, I had suspicions. I had seen things with my own eyes. So again, I know the latter day people. I've seen these dudes on the internet, half of them look white to me, but I see these dudes on the internet talking about it's not true. They got proof. They got evidence. You can't prove that something didn't happen to people who were there. I was a teenager. I moved in as a teenager. You know what I mean? I was an older teenager, but I was a teenager. I wasn't like 13, which would have probably put me in harm's way, quite honestly. Actually, let me not say that, because it seemed to me that he progressed. His pathology progressed over time. Anyway, but I'll say this to answer your question, Sanetta. When I found out, I wasn't a little bit shocked. I was not a little bit shocked. I remember being on the land that they called, we called it Kadesh. It eventually became called Wahani, and then it became called Tamaray. Yeah. But again, the latter-day Nuwaubians don't even know we called it. When it started, it was called Kadesh. In fact, I was the driver I was Dr. York's, I was the chauffeur, not of Dr. York, but of all the people going from Atlanta to the land. So I would drive back from Atlanta, from West End to Eatonton, sometimes 3-4 times a day. Which anybody knows that's like driving from Philly to New York 3 times a day.
Wow. Right.
Not quite that long, but the same mileage. Anyway, and I remember the last time I was on the land, I had stayed up there for a few days. I was staying up there in one of the trailers. One of the rappers from the Grave Diggers was there. He died. He eventually died. And I remember walking into Club Ramesses, which was the club he had built up there. And I remember walking in, and I wasn't supposed to walk in, apparently. But they told me I was going for a walk. But I walked in, and there were kids there. Some had skates on, because they were kind of skating around Ramesses. The kids were like two were like sitting on his lap.
Yeah, you see that? That's what happens. That's the grooming process.
I'll say this. As soon as I opened the door, somebody said, "You can't be in here." And I turned around and left. It was one of them, don't be in here, like on some like, I know what type of time it was.
It felt really uncomfortable is what you're saying.
Yeah, it was an energy thing too.
Right.
I had already heard things and seen things. But my understanding at that moment was that it was with other people's wives, other people's maybe young teenage girls. I knew that for fact.
Now, was you in there by yourself, or you was in there with family, other members?
No, I was solo.
Oh,
I was solo.
Okay.
I was solo. And I had worked my way kind of up the not the ranks, but I was definitely trying. The goal of anybody who lived in Georgia was to move to the land.
This social media influencer, motivational speaker, is making headlines for the.
And see, guys, that's what happens. That's what happens once again when some of our women get with unsavory men instead of getting with strong masculine men. You know, Ellie J, you said that the sunset. I'm going to question your query. You said that the sunset. Okay, hold tight. The sunset, it's the woman's fault. You talk like a man that's been raised by a single mother. No, dear, my parents have been married for over 50 years, and I was raised in a home with a man, so I don't understand your logic. The point is this: women are the gatekeepers to sex. Men are the gatekeepers to relationships. If you give your womb to dusty, ain't-ish men, then you're going to suffer the recompense of your error. Women got to start taking accountability for the men they deal with. You can't get with dusty men because of swag and whatever, but then get mad when you're left unaccounted for because he's not a dominant masculine man. Children that are born in families where the men are dominant and masculine tend less to have those issues. I'm not saying that it's not all the man's fault, but women got to take accountability, some of them, for their behavior. We got to take accountability. So no, you know, the shame and language, raised by a single mother, no dear. I wasn't raised by a single parent. I think I told you that yesterday. I was raised in a home by two parents. And I'm a masculine man myself, and I teach my girls how to be responsible and respect themselves as well. So keep listening.
Wrong reason. NBC6 reporter Kim Nguyen is live in Miami Beach tonight with more on the arrest of the man known as Brother Polite. Kim.
Yeah, well, Jawan, the suspect surrendered here at the Miami Beach Police Department earlier this week. Police charged him with sexual battery of a 14-year-old girl. We did speak with his lawyer earlier tonight, who says that these charges are false. This is the mugshot of 37-year-old Michael Nowak Jr., also known as Brother Polite, to his more than 300,000 Instagram followers. Miami Beach police arrested Nowak this week for alleged sexual battery of a 14-year-old girl in a hotel room in February. Police say the alleged victim was the daughter of a woman he was romantically linked to.
And see, that's what a lot of our women don't understand and get. They try to equivocate masculine, responsible men to all men, that all men, or the dusty men that abandon their kids to all men. I think there are studies to say about 51% of kids are more or less, 51% of men are not even married, never have had kids. So there's a large percentage of men that have never had kids that are very responsible and they're taking care of their responsibility. But see, here's the problem, Ellie J. What you don't understand, I respect you. If you want to come on, please come on at some point and share your points. Because, see, I don't mind having a cogent debate. But what we're not going to do, we're not going to resort to shaming language. I'm a licensed therapist, and I know what I'm talking about. And so when women more or less get with unsavory men because they choose swag over the boring guy, that's what they get. Dusty, ain't-ish men that don't take care of their responsibility and abandon their kids. There are solid, good brothers that would love to have families. But unfortunately, a lot of our women don't pick those men until it's too late. You pick the losers in your younger years, but then you get with the bum. You want to get a great man after you pick the loser. Most men don't mind more or less talking about they're dusty men. We know there are dusty men in the black community that are lazy, that ain't, whatever. But we're not going to more or less sit up here and more or less try and encapsulate and assume that this makes up the majority of black men. There are some solid, good brothers that are upstanding. And so we're not going to get up here and more or less denigrate solid black men. If you want to have a debate as we do the show, as we're doing it, then please do. But see, that's a thinking error called minimization and magnification. And see, that's why I'm doing this show, because a lot of our women have more or less been imprinted by ain't-ish men that don't take care of their responsibility. And see, what you guys do, you more or less project, or more or less have a condition called displaced aggression. And so you displace your aggression because of the men that you chose. Let's go back in time to the men that you could have got that were great men, that were good men. Many of you missed the mark. Guys you should have probably married and be pragmatic with. You look past those men because they were boring. But after you have fun with the athletes and the bad boys and the F boys, now all of a sudden you want a good man. And now you want to equivocate all black men to these negative clowns that don't take care of their kids. So, swag don't pay bills. Boring and repetitious pay bills. Keep listening.
Defense attorney David Terrace says his client is innocent.
Once the evidence is produced, that he is going to be exonerated. So yeah, not guilty, nothing else.
According to the police report, Nowak, a motivational speaker and author who lives in L.A., asked the woman if he could take her daughter to an after party at a club in Miami. The report states Nowak took the teen to his hotel after seeing that the club was closed. Police say the suspect gave the teen alcohol and started dancing.
And see, Brother Polite was a disciple of MalikYork. He was a disciple of MalikYork. And see, a lot of these men that are predatorial tend to follow the pattern of the men that they study under. Many people of the conscious community, some of them still believe that one day MalikYork is going to more or less escape, and he's going to transport through the ceiling and be free. And let me tell you guys something. That is what I call the occult, but also it is an occult. The occult means to look into the esoteric, but occult is a form of ritual abuse where men more or less try to shame or more or less control others. So it's not only the occult, but it's also a cult. And a lot of times that's what happens in sexual ritual abuse trials, where these kids are more or less caught up with predatory males, and sometimes women, where they're more or less caught up and they become victims of sexual abuse rituals. And this is woefully shameful. Because if these kids had strong masculine fathers that could see through the BS, a lot of these children will not be in this predicament. And what you got walking around, you got a lot of broken men and women. You got a lot of broken women that have not dealt with the trauma that they're dealing with. And some of these women have more or less developed what's called personality disorders, cluster B personality disorders, known as borderline personality disorders. And we're going to talk about it as we continue to do the show. So listen, guys, if you like what I'm doing, please cash out $7Smalls. Please cash out $7Smalls. Please share this content because, as I said it 2 times earlier, we can talk about money, we can talk about status, we can talk about everything. But until we get the mind right, until we change that brokenness in the mind, relationships are not going to be repaired. A lot of our men and women are walking around broken due to child sexual abuse and molestation. And some of those negative behaviors that you're seeing manifest in them is because of that. So keep listening to this. Keep listening. And please share this. I need you to share this to as many men and women as possible. Please share it. To the 18 that are watching, please share it now. And once you share it, I want you to put a 1 in the chat. All right? Put a 1 in the chat once you share it. Thank you.
And touching the teen inappropriately, groping her breast, inner thighs, and buttocks. It goes on to say Nowak tried to force the teen to perform oral sex on him. The teen allegedly passed out and woke up to Nowak trying to make her throw up.
These are serious allegations, but in any situation, there is always motive. There is always a lot behind the scenes that the public is not going to be able to see.
The report states that the girl's mother found her intoxicated and possibly on drugs with severe swelling on her mouth and lips.
And see, once again, some of our women, some, not all, some of our women, instead of them focusing on their kids, a lot of them are focused on being in a relationship. Once you have a child, your main focus should be that child. If a relationship happens, so be it. But responsible women and responsible moms don't bring men around their children because they know that they can be more at risk for sexual abuse. And so that's why I think a lot of our women need to be more cautious when they're dating, men too, because what we don't understand is this. A lot of men are victims of sexual abuse. R. Kelly was a victim of sexual abuse. And sometimes it comes at the hands of women too. It's not just a man's thing, it's a woman thing as well. So keep listening.
It later states Nowak told the mother not to call police because it would ruin his career. Nowak was served with a DNA warrant in June and surrendered to police on Monday. Terrorist says the police report is only an allegation. And Nowak claims to have written more than 90 books. In an interview, he also claims to have several wives.
How it all started for you? How did it all begin?
Well, I'm going to say this. Masculine men do hold women accountable. I would say weak men don't hold women accountable. One of the things our women got to stop doing is being caught up in victimization, what I call the victim Olympics. If you get with dusty, unsavory men, then you're going to suffer the recompense of your error. It's just a fact. It's called being accountable. And so you can't, once again, lay up with men that ain't ish, and you pick swag over substance and then complain about the kind of men that you chose. Women should be picking men that act like their fathers, that are responsible. But sometimes a lot of our women don't pick men that look like our fathers because they saw their fathers as boring. And unfortunately, sometimes their mothers had contempt for their fathers. So we got to take accountability for our behaviors because prior to the sexual revolution, most women did not have a bunch of kids out of wedlock. I just showed you guys the stats. You saw the stats. The stats don't lie. So you see there's a strong correlation between the 1960s, when people were more conservative, till after post-1960s, the sexual revolution. And because of the sexual revolution, a lot of women became very promiscuous. And they gave their bodies to men they shouldn't have gave their bodies to. And some of these men that were predators took advantage of these women. But that's what happens when you don't follow the admonition of your elders and don't follow the admonition of your fathers. Women are the gatekeepers to sex. Men are the gatekeepers to relationships. And I think once we understand that, then we can turn around and put the blame on ourselves for allowing some of these dusty guys or these irresponsible men to use women. Keep listening. And so this story right here is talking about Eddie Long. And Eddie Long's allegations of child abuse, child sexual abuse. This guy was 14 when it happened. So listen to this.
Take my number down. Call me. Me, I'm 14 years old. I'm new to the state. I can't. Like, what do we got to talk about? We're not even in the same league. When I got in trouble at school, I called him, and the next day, my mom came, picked me up, and the teacher was actually saying, "Can I keep my job? I apologize." And that's how I actually got caught up into it. Like, that's how I became, let me just do everything the church do, let me do everything he say do, because I want to be like that. You got.
And see, guys, that goes back to what I said earlier about church abuse and the spiritual father concept. See, as I said earlier, when boys have fathers, they're not more or less preyed upon, because no strong masculine father is going to allow his son to get caught up in some BS where this man's going to try to groom him by calling him his spiritual father. Some of these so-called spiritual fathers are predators. Like I said, I grew up in Church of God in Christ, grew up Pentecostal holiness. And some of these so-called spiritual fathers are nothing but groomers. You would be surprised at the men that were complicit in molesting boys. Not only did it happen in the black church, but it also happened in the Catholic church. But not only did it happen in the Catholic church, it also happened sometimes to some of the girls in the Islamic communities, but also to the conscious community. So no one is free, black church, white church, because we tend to denigrate the black church all the time. And I'm not here to denigrate the black church because I was part of it. I'm not going to denigrate the church because I was part of it. But we got to call out things like they are, no different than the conscious community, like Brother Polite and MalikYork, but also no different than other groups that have more or less exploited our children. And this is what happens, guys, once again. Church abuse and the spiritual fathers, more or less, they know how to groom our boys, and they know more or less how to look to them and more or less look for cues. Because remember, boys need instruction. Boys need the guidance and the admonition of their fathers. Look at societies where the cultures are still patriarchal. Look at the cultures where the men are still dominant and strong. Look at the cultures where men speak truth to power. Our boys are not at risk. We got boys now having an identity crisis because they don't know who they are. And see, I keep telling our women, I think B. Nizzle said it. I don't know who said it, B. Nizzle or someone else said it. But we want to more or less amalgamate liberal policies and ideologies with traditionalism. And it doesn't work. You cannot amalgamate traditional mores with liberal policies. The great teacher and the prophet and the Messiah, Jesus, said you can't take new wine and put it into old wineskin. It's not going to work. And that's why we have the cesspool of brokenness and trauma that we have now, because unfortunately, some of our women want to inculcate liberal policies to traditional ideas. And men mostly are traditional. Most men in this group are traditional. And that's why I started the Manhood Chronicles and the Kosher Clinician, because I realized that a lot of male issues weren't being addressed. This show, to the sisters that listening, is for to educate. But what we're not going to do, we're not going to get caught up in shaming language. If anyone want to come in as the show is going on, we can have this discussion. I'm very kosher. I'm very fair. But if you think you're going to come on my panel popping off, you're going to get this work, because I don't tolerate disrespect from nobody. I don't mind having a cogent discussion, but we're not going to have disrespect. So keep listening.
That much power. I'm listening to rappers call, say, "Can I rent your car? Can I borrow money from you? Because my next CD will come out. I need an event." So you hear this and you see these people around them. When I said in my first interview, it's a drug. It literally is. You're 14 years old. You don't see this stuff often. And I get the chance to be with you and just run with you just because? It's the power that he commanded when he walked into a room. That's dad. To everybody. You walk in the sermon, "Hey, Pops." You go into the office, "Hey, Pops." You walk around the city, "Hey, Pop." But yet he'll make sure when I walk in the city, "This is my son. We're going places. I'm with the president. This is my son." I felt bad for his kids man, I don't know what y'all doing at home, but this my dad now. That's tough.
How did he transition it? How did it progress?
You're just so comfortable. And then out of nowhere, he just hits you with the most emotional.
And see, guys, that's what happens. This is what this young man said. He said he was so comfortable. And see, if these young boys had strong masculine fathers, they would know what to look out for. Because see, listen, I worked in law enforcement. I also worked in juvenile detention. And boys by nature are hierarchical in thinking. Boys want somebody to look up to guide them. They've done studies about wild elephants. And when those wild elephants didn't have the older bulls, those young elephants went astray. The juvenile elephants went astray. But when those elephants had masculine bull elephants in the family, those elephants were grounded, because masculine men bring order and balance. But when you look at our communities now, we don't have any more masculine men because a lot of the masculine men are either broken or more or less weak because they're under matriarchal rule. And so to the women that are listening, you guys say you want strong men. Well, strong men come with a price. Strong men speak truth to power. And that's why we got to continue to have this discussion, because what you're hearing from this young man is a concept called grooming. Thank you, Tim Howell, for that generous cash out. Thank you, brother. And to the guys that are listening, if you like what I'm doing, until I get this channel is being monetized, please donate to $7 Smalls as I'm working on monetization. It's in process. And I'm grateful to the people that are listening. So, and then at the end of the show, we can have a brief discussion. All right. So keep listening, because this is a grooming technique.
Question. Now, when he takes you to that emotional question, I'm taking you back to a memory. It's almost like hypnotism. Relax, lay down, talk about how you feel. And then you start vividly thinking about it, and you start crying. And that's when I talk to you. I know what you're feeling, and I know what it's like. And I'm sorry, and I'm gonna step in the place of your father.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not gonna let you go. Wow, for real? You gonna do all that? That's what's up. You're my dad. Mm-hmm. So while everybody sees a well-dressed grown man, they don't know you treat me like and I grow up with that mentality, regardless of what you think my age is, and regardless of whether you think it's right. I'm 7 years old in my own eyes.
At the moment, as a 14-year-old, you're thinking like you're the luckiest kid in the world. It's just like, you know, nothing can touch you. Like, you know, you always know somebody got your back, you know. And for me, it was more of a spiritual connection with them. You know, it was all about God. The day that I met him, you know, it was just like a God moment, you know. It was, you know, the most emotional point in my life that I've ever been. Like, actually, the day that I met him, he actually had a sermon about forgiving your father, about all the stuff that, you know, he did in the past. I thought, you know, this is just a God connection. Like, this is my purpose to be a part of this church. I changed my whole life because of what he told me. You know, I used to play basketball. I used to be a sport. I used to play.
And guys, that's what I said earlier when I'm doing this show. I said that a broken man is a hopeless man. And a hopeless man is a dangerous man. The reason why you see what I call the psycho sense more or less percolate in society, because they are broken. They are broken due to the lack of guidance. They are broken due to the lack of direction. And because of that brokenness, they're more at risk for hurting other people. That's why fathers are so important in relationships. That's why fathers are so important in families. If we want to have strong communities and strong societies, we got to have strong families. But when you got 73% of your children being born out of wedlock or born to single parents, single moms, that's a problem. And see, to the women that will always say, you know, men not taking care of their responsibility, here's a caveat to that. Many men, at least 29%, according to statistics, are still virgins. So what did that say? A lot of our women are going to men that are, you know, unsavory, that are not productive men, and they're giving their bodies to the guys, the top 10, top 5, top 20, 10% men, and they're looking over the percentage of men that are actually decent brothers. And so some of our women got to take ownership for the men that they choose, because a lot of these boys have been broken due molestation and abuse. And like I said, the predatory man, he knows how to watch, pray, study, and study the body language. The greatest threat to a predator is a masculine dominant man. That's why societies don't like men. They like men like James Evans, because masculine men are going to speak up and say what they believe in.
Quarterback, I was a point guard, I was a power forward, whatever. I was real skilled in basketball.
He taught me how to play chess, and I don't even like the game. I just learned how to think beyond what other people think. It's a perfect way. A predator, they have a certain pattern that they all do. And for him, it started, let me captivate you. You want to get a pretty girl? Show her a pretty ring, show her a pretty watch, show her a pretty necklace, show her a pretty car. Got your attention. Okay, now that I got your attention, let me talk to you, let me friend you. Let me show you what I really can do. Now I show you who I am is powerful. Okay, now let me befriend you. Let me get you to confide in me. Talk to me. Now I know your secrets. I got your attention, you know I'm powerful, and I got your secrets. I rule you. Now on top of that, let me alienate you from everything you knew and everything everybody else taught you, and now let me show you how I want you to do things. Let me groom you. Now, after I groom you, you're not allowed to talk to females because I don't want a female to mess up your mind into what I'm doing. I need to keep you isolated. No, you can't have friends because I don't want your friends messing up what I tell you. You're still isolated. Now, things are happening to you in a room. Who are you going to talk to? You've isolated everyone. Everyone thinks you've abandoned them. Nobody can hear you. They just see a new behavior and a new attitude, a new person. Oh, they're stuck up now. No, you don't know what I got to do. You don't know what nightmares I have at night. So who are you to judge me? What's funny is I read so many comments after I got arrested, but nobody ever took the time to look and say, yo, what the hell did he do? I got a gun. Y'all people talking about money we got. What? I don't know what you're talking about. I don't. Yes, I protect myself. I believe everybody in America has a right to protect themselves. You caught me with bud, look at the sign of sexual abuse victims. What's the very first thing on any website you'll see? Alcoholism, drug abuse, ice. Now, is that not all stuff I did? Why am I in another city? I'm not in Atlanta. Read the signs. Judge me again. Judge me again and then judge me again. And still ask me, could you do half the stuff we walked through?
How did he rope you into that?
How did he rope you into it? Explain, like, what do you mean?
How did he convince you the very first time to do what?
Just to be his son, or you mean, or what do you?
No, the physical stuff. How did he transition it?
Well, you know, started off, you know, it's just.
That's the stuff he
you
did.
know, it's.
You start touching him.
He is slowly gain your trust. That's it. I mean, you think a man of that stature would not ever do anything like that, and that's what everyone thinks. I mean, any priest, any bishop, any pastor, anyone, whoever goes to that congregation, whoever listens to that man speak is going to automatically give that man the utmost respect. You know, and that's what we did. I mean, we were just regular members of the church. We wasn't anything more than kids who went to the church to learn about God. I mean, but the thing is, you know, what trapped us was, you know, we were just addicted to the lifestyle. We was addicted to the love that we got because I didn't have a dad my whole life.
See, listen. You keep hearing the reoccurring theme. I didn't have a dad. I didn't have a father. I didn't have guidance. And that's why I get so sick of these liberal policies that more or less try to keep men out of the lives of their children. To the women that are listening, if you have a man, you might not like the man, but let that man stay in the life of his child. If he's a responsible man, he's a solid man. I'm not talking about dusty dudes. The men in here we don't ascribe to dusty men. We don't more or less support dusty, irresponsible men. But we do support men that are solid brothers that want to take care of their kids and want to be good men. But some of you women are bitter because of the relationship didn't go in your favor. And because of that bitterness, now you're suffering and the child is suffering because you're not thinking rationally. You're thinking with your emotions. And remember this, your emotions are temporary. They're not long-term. So allow those men to be in that child's life. I would say sometimes it's best to let the son go stay with his father. And the daughter to some degree, because if you can't take care of them, you don't have the proper emotional stability. It's better to let that child stay with the father. Keep listening. If he's a good man.
I was fatherless, and to have a man love me just for who I was, I ain't had to change myself. I just had to be me. I just had to love him back because he didn't have a lot of love. That's what he would show you. Like he doesn't have any love. Out of all his congregation, he just want you to love him.
Yeah,
and you feel like you have since he's that type of power, you have to do that because it's the right thing to do because God wants you to do it.
I'm about to tell a secret.
And to become anybody in power, first you have to learn how to serve, and that's what he taught us. Like you serve, you do what we say. You serve. I want to become a preacher. I want to become this man. I want to have the influence of this man.
I think what she's asking is how it led from the son stuff to going past that. So That's kind of what I was trying to show y'all just now. It goes from me sitting over here to me moving closer. Good job, son.
Just a little, anything.
Good job, son. It's a mental game, and at that point, he was able to outthink us because he got 3 times our lifespan. For some odd reason, people think we had sex. Let me clarify that one, point blank, period. No one ever said we had sex. I've seen articles, we did not have sex. Point blank, period. We simply said there were things that were inappropriate, sexual. What Spencer LeGrand speaks about is his personal experience. What Jamal Parrish speaks about is mine. And everybody else, they do their own thing. But when you look at a person and you confide in them and you trust them and you love them and you give them 10 years of your life and you separate your family and the woman you loved and your home and your dogs and your security system and your education, when you separate that, how are you ever supposed to get that back? And how do you put a price tag or how do you put anything on that? I don't trust. Trust is for the weak.
See that right there?
Right. And see, that's what I talked about earlier, that schema, which means a pattern of thinking. And these guys sound like they have what's called a negative schema, because a schema can be positive or negative. But on the flip side, it becomes an affliction based on fear. Many men and women are afraid to open up based on that schema affliction. And that affliction is keeping them more or less being sabotaged by the past and the pain that they went through. Unresolved trauma is the =1 breaking point for a lot of men and women in our community. And when I keep telling people that sexual abuse is victimless, it just don't occur to women, it occurs to men and women. Keep listening. All right, hold on. Hold tight.
It's my dad now. That's tough.
How did he transition it? How did it progress?
You're just so comfortable. And then out of nowhere, he just hits you with the most emotional question. Now, when he takes you to that emotional question, I'm taking you back to a memory. It's almost like hypnotism. Relax, lay down, talk about how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start vividly thinking about it, and you start crying. And that's when I talk to you. I know what you're feeling. I know what it's like. And I'm sorry, and I'm gonna step in the place of your father. And I'm not gonna let you go. Wow, for real? You gonna do all that? That's what's up. You're my dad. So while everybody sees a well-dressed grown man, they don't know you treat me like and I grow up with that mentality, regardless of what you think my age is, and regardless of whether you think it's right, I'm 7 years old in my own eyes.
At the moment, as a 14-year-old, you're thinking like you're the luckiest kid in the world. It's just like, nothing can touch you. Like, you always know somebody got your back, And for me, it was more of a spiritual connection with them. It was all about God. The day that I met him, it was just like a God moment, It was, the most emotional point in my life that I've ever been. Like, actually, the day that I met him, he actually had a sermon about forgiving your father, about all the stuff that, he did in the past. I thought, this is just a God connection. Like, this is my purpose to be a part of this church. 'Cause I changed my whole life because of what he told me. I used to play basketball. I used to be a sport. I used to play quarterback. I was a point guard. I was a power forward, whatever. I was really...
What?
And you're correct, Elliot. You're 100% correct. That's what happens when responsible women allow their children to go with their fathers. Masculine, stronger men give boys guidance. I always tell people this, and I need you guys to listen. Having a father in the home is not a guarantee. Yeah, I know crypto. I gotta put it up for it. Having a father in the home is not a guarantee, but having strong masculine fathers are. And that's the difference, a strong masculine father. So kudos to you for handling your business.
What trapped us was, we were just addicted to the lifestyle. We was addicted to the love that we got, because I didn't have a dad my whole life. I was fatherless, and to have a man love me just for who I was, I ain't had to change myself. I just had to be me. I just had to love him back. because he didn't have a lot of love. That's what he would show you. Like he doesn't have any love out of all his congregation. He just want you to love him.
Yeah,
and you feel like you have since he's.
For some odd reason, people think we had sex. Let me clarify that one, point blank, period. No one ever said we had sex.
I just don't trust because of this situation. It showed me how evil people are. You know, it shows you, even though you could have a title of a man of God, that we still fall short.
I'm not speaking against anybody's faith. You do with what you feel. If you want to worship in the church, worship in the church. If you want to worship it, do whatever makes you feel comfortable. But me and for mine, I don't trust y'all. For what? Y'all judged us for telling the truth. This is what parents teach their 2-year-old kids. Tell the truth, don't lie. If something happens, come out, we'll cover you or protect you. We're your family. It takes a village to raise a child, but guess what? Where was our village? So why the hell am I gonna trust y'all for anything? I don't wanna hear that crap from none of them. Because guess what? If they've been hearing it for years, why did it take me 1 year after I left before something got done? I don't show any sympathy to anybody going through it now. I would love to, I really would. I feel sorry for what's going on through you, but I feel like at this point, the ship is sinking. We done put up the flare signals. We showed you the lifeboat. We told you everything you need to do. We showed you the signs. This is how you avoid it. And that's why I'm really gonna write a book and I'm gonna tell y'all, this is how y'all avoid it. This is what it looks like. Each gift became above the next. Like I remember the first time I didn't have money to go to New York. Oh, you don't have money for a flight? I'll get you there. Oh, you need money for spending? Send you $20.
You just ran with it because you had so much faith in this church and this man. Like,
no, you know what the most fun part was? Just pulling up in the cars. Like that was just stupid. You talking about 19, 20, 21, and you pull up in a Maybach, a Rolls, a Cadillac XLR.
And all those people saw him going into the hotel room with you guys. Where were they?
In the office.
I can answer that real quickly.
They were in the office doing their jobs at work.
Once you have that much money to pay people and your money's involved in their lifestyle, how they live, you have followers. You have people who's going to support you no matter if you had a videotape showing it. Towards the end, I mean, you just start breaking down every day, wanting to voice out what's going on inside your heart, but you know, you're scared to tell people. But no one really knew until we actually said something. I mean, not in my family. I'm talking about family of mine. The emotion that came out of it after I told them and explained to them was horrifying. It was tears, emotion, it was angriness, it was just thinking back, like, what could I have done different to help my little boy, something so innocent.
What's been the hardest part of all this for you?
The hardest part for me is watching somebody who you love destroy himself. That's been the hardest part because I still, you know, me, I don't have any hate. You know, I don't hate anyone. You know, I don't want to see someone destroy themselves. I don't want to see somebody in this kind of pressure. You know, you put this on yourself, man. Like any man who does that is a crazy man. You know, it's just, you know, I don't want to see anybody go through what you're going through because it's just not right. It's just I still have a heart. You know, I still care for you, but why would you sit here and just be, you know, this type of person in this world? Like you don't have, tomorrow's not promised. And why would you go to sleep at night? How do you sleep at night and just be able to say like everything's okay with your
Shout out to Mickey Reed Crates. I almost lost my oldest to the streets. My brothers had swallowed your pride and sent them to me. Although his dad wouldn't step up, I'm grateful for the men in my family. So kudos to you, young lady. And I concur. There becomes a point where our women must swallow their pride and realize they don't have the tools to deal with men. Men and women don't think the same. Men think on principles. Women tend to think mostly on feelings. And because of that, a lot of times our boys are placed in perilous predicaments. Our elders from Africa did it. When they were trying to teach men the importance of manhood and man passage, what they would do, they would take the boys away from their fathers, mothers, and they would take them out and more or less take them to the wilderness to learn manhood. And so boys went through a ritual called rites of passage. But now it's not happening because our communities are so broken. And our communities are broken. And when our communities are broken, our girls and boys are more at risk of sexual abuse and mental illness. And there's a lot of undiagnosed mental illness in this community. And listen, guys, I'm a licensed therapist. So if you like what I'm doing, please cash out $7 Smalls. But also, if you need a consultation, hit me up at kosherclinician@gmail.com, and I can more or less give you a consultation and give you parameters around the things that you're dealing with. So keep listening. And then also, as this thing is loading up, as I told you guys earlier, children that are more at risk or come from broken families
your family going
are
through,
more at
man?
risk for
Do you see what you're
personality
putting everyone through?
I'm 24 years old now. What the hell happened? How the hell did I get here? Where am I? Who are these people around me? I don't know these people. Why are they around me? Oh, y'all love me so much now. I'm so handsome now. I'm so much nicer now. I'm so much more polite. I'm a jerk.
You're talking about the money.
I'm a jerk. You get to know me? If you're not my friend, I'm a jerk. If I don't know you, stay away from me. If you want to ask me the hardest part, looking back at my life saying, yo, look at all the people that I really care for that I lost. Look at the people who I don't care for that are around me now. Why is the person that I love the most with all my heart still, after all this is done, you can't look me in my eyes and say you sorry. You can't pick up a damn phone and say, yo, I know I messed up.
And so, God, that's what happens when people are more or less involved in sexual abuse. They can have what's called a shatter point, like the Jedis in the movie. And they can also go do something called disassociation or dissociative personality disorders, when they become depersonalized and they become derealized. Depersonalization is part of dissociative personality disorder. This thing is lagging a little bit, but bear with me.
This was wrong on my part. Yo, I really am sorry. You want to still do it. You still want to have fun. So look at the monsters that you created. And I really want y'all to see it. When y'all look at a sexual abuse victim, look at them in their eyes and ask me if you still see the same person that you saw 2-3 years ago. They're not the same. They don't think the same. They don't look the same. They don't love the same. I don't trust nobody. I will not trust anybody. I'm gonna have to go through a lot of therapy sessions. I know I will.
We can't just show you a picture of our life, what we've been through. You have to actually have the ear to hear and listen to what we're saying, you know.
God, you sound like him right now.
I know, because we're trying to change it. We don't want to see other kids go through this. And even if we don't stop the sexual molestation spirit, even if we don't stop this man or anything, it's the sense of God looks at us and he's blessing us. You know, when we die, it's gonna be all good. You know, this life that we live in is just, you know, it's a test. Everywhere you go, it's a test.
Do you feel like he needs to be punished?
I think God is the only punisher. So I think God is dealing with him now. I think he's already being punished, because I see, you know, even though, you know, this stuff is over with, I still go to Google. I still find myself going to Google, typing in his name and just searching what's going on next, you know. I just seen his face, you know, and I could see that he's hurting inside, and he's not the same person as he used to be. I know what he's going through. I know he's still, you know, he's still fighting things. I'm still fighting things. But when you got a brother who will be there for you, no matter what people say, you know, no matter what you go through, you know, you got somebody there. You know, that's all I want, you know, is a friend, somebody who cares and knows what I've been through, you know. And that's what we're doing now. You know, we just here, you know, have each other back, and, you know, we're trying to get to the next level and try to move on with our lives, you know. We still fight it every day because it's our life, you know. It's people don't understand that we are like real people out here. Like we not just victims. We are people who are trying to make it. We have all our problems, you know, but, you know, we're just trying to make it. We're trying to become men without a father, you know. That's the person who made us, you know, the type of person we are now. But he did teach us good things, but something in his heart, you know, had to have, you know, something had to be wrong with him, man, you know.
I feel like people that do the things they do, they got to answer for their decisions at some point in life. Whether you face it legally, God, or somebody catches up to you one day. I think everybody has to pay a consequence. And I don't think it's up for me to decide what that consequence is. But I'm pretty sure that one day I'm gonna sit back with some popcorn one day, watch TV, and I'm gonna smile and cry like I've never cried before. And I'm looking forward to that day. And I hate it at the same time. Is what's done in the dark will
Unless these men get comprehensive therapy, they're not going to be fit for relationships, and they're not going to be fit to more or less for society. When men are more or less molested, boys and girls, men or women, their brain more or less splits. And let me tell you guys something. There are a lot of women that you're dealing with that have borderline personality disorders. And that borderline personality disorder is due to trauma. And a lot of time it comes from sexual abuse or molestation. And they more or less go to what's called a shatter point, similar to the Jedis, when they cross over into the dark side. People don't believe that mental illness is real, but it is real. And there are some in the Christian faith or in other faiths that believes that when people cross over, when they have that shatter point, they have, they're more at risk for demonic activity. Not saying you have to believe that, but it's something to think about. Keep listening.
will come to light. Surprise, the light's on.
Yeah. He was begging me to come back. He was begging me to come back to the church, begging me to see me. And I was like, look, man, I don't like what's going on here. So I'm fleeing. I'm going back to my hometown.
And I have to listen to his voice for the first time again in months. And for me, that was difficult. Just hearing his voice, seeing his face, because when I see his face, what I honestly want to do, it's the hopeful kid in you, like, who maybe daddy's gonna be daddy today, and maybe this thing done waited enough for them that I can't let my kids go out there like that. I'm not gonna let my kids take this. Let me come in and save the day for my kids. Yo, you know what? This is on me. I'ma fix it. I got quiet and I started crying on the phone. And I couldn't even stop crying because it was angry. And the way he walked off, and the way I saw the people stand up and applaud this man. How dare you?
Money doesn't buy happiness, so it's you don't really care if you lose it or if you get more, because really all that matters is just like the peace of mind. I just like to be at peace with myself. This money stuff, like, who cares about the number? Who cares about how much we got, how much we didn't get? Because it's not even about that.
The most transparent thing is I ain't coming into this situation for no money. I really don't give a crap. I don't. Came in a situation, I just told the truth. That's all I did. I didn't expect anything. I just wanted the truth, and I wanted some questions answered. Last time I checked, it didn't come with a price tag. You put it there, point blank, period. I still want my pain to stop. I would love to, and I got to keep going back to my therapy because it's just ridiculous. It really is. But it's just not enough anymore. Like, I thought I could cover the pain up. I thought I could move, start over, and everything would go away. I was terribly wrong, because I'm still bringing the same demons and nightmares. So now I'm living a lifestyle that's meant to crash, and I know it's supposed to crash. I don't think it's fair for young men to feel as if they're going through an experience that nobody else is going through. I honestly thought I was the only one. I honestly thought I was the only teenage one. I honestly thought I was the only black one. I honestly thought I was the only male. I don't care if this book sells one copy or I don't. But if it's just for me, yo, this is what my life looked like. This is my voice for the first time.
Is there a lot out there that people still don't know?
Yes. Absolutely. You ain't ready for the secrets.
If you end up having to give back the money, will it be worth it?
I don't care.
Will it be worth it?
I don't care.
It's not about the money.
Go back.
I will give it right now. Dude, I feel like burning it. Really?
Honestly, if you want it back, if you're that desperate because your church membership ain't the way it needs to be, well, hey, guess what? Great for you.
Who cares about that?
Your name still ain't gonna be nothing. If you want to fight me, feel free for telling the truth. You could shut up and say, you know what? I did this. I was wrong. Let me make things right. Let me go about getting some help. Or you could fight me again and lose again. And if you keep fighting me again, I'm gonna embarrass you again.
He been through this just like me, and we there for each other, man. It's like
I don't know if I'm angry anymore at the abuse. I think I'm more so angry at what I lost from it. Aside from my family and my home, my dogs, and the woman of my life at that time, I lost something more important. That was myself and my dad, because my dad was me.
He beat me with a shoe, a size 12.
That's why we tend to stigmatize therapy and we minimize it. The mic was unmuted. I apologize for that. But when we walk around with undiagnosed mental illnesses, as I said earlier, you are more at risk for doing negative things. You are more at risk of being a danger to yourself, and you're more at risk of being a danger to others. And as I said earlier, you can develop the dissociative personality disorder. That's called multiple personality disorders, where you become a victim of depersonalization when you feel like you're no longer a person due to the trauma, but also derealization, where it doesn't feel like it's real. These are patterns that help the brain more or less protect itself from the trauma that they're dealing with. But then also some people can develop, due to trauma, narcissistic personality disorders as well. And it's unfortunate, and you're right, I'm beating Nizzle. I hate it as well. It's unfortunate that people are victims of trauma. And Tim, you are correct. It's very unfortunate. Now, this woman was more or less, she was a predator, not a predator, but she was impacted by R. Kelly. Once again, R. Kelly was a predator, but he also was a victim. And we don't talk about this. So I want you to listen to this point about this young lady as well. And then when we finish the show, if anyone has been impacted, if you want to talk and share what you want to share, we can have a discussion.
12-foot Air Force One, and he beat me all over, which felt like hours, and I was whelped all the way from my neck down. You could not do anything without him knowing. You would have to ask him if you could go to the restroom. You would have to.
Some will argue and ask the question, where is this young girl's father at? How are so many of our women being allowed to be around a man such as a predator like R. Kelly? Once again, R. Kelly was victimized. He was victimized. But this is what happens to people that are abused. They can either become predators or they can become very rigid in their sexuality. R. Kelly took the latter route. He became a predator. Many women and men that become victimized due to sexual abuse become what's called hyposexual instead of being hypersexual. R. Kelly became hypersexual. And so I noticed some said 0 and Tim said 1, and that's interesting. Hopefully we can have a brief discussion before I see patients later. But, it comes to mind that R. Kelly too was a victim. And I'm not giving him any clemency or exoneration. I'm not doing that. But we do got to take in consideration that people that have been victimized do other people tend to do the same thing. So keep listening.
He beat me with a shoe, a size 12-foot Air Force One, and he beat me all over, which felt like hours, and I was whelped all the way from my neck down. There's been so many years that, I've gone without even bringing them up or thinking about them, that I've really just lost touch with them. And that's definitely the most heartbreaking thing, like not being able to see your brother or your dad for 3-4 years and still not wanting to hug them. And it's tough, but I'm getting there and I'm appreciative of that. So.
All right. And it's true. It's very true that hurt people do tend to hurt others. Hurt people tend to hurt other people. And it's unfortunate because, once again, this is what happens when fathers are not in the home. I want people that have more or less been impacted by sexual abuse. You can share what you want to share, to give your comments, because I had to do this show. This has been a show that's been on my heart for a long time, and it's been marinating for a long time. And to the women, what's your take on fatherlessness? Please join. To the men, hit the link and let's have a conversation. To those that have been more or less impacted by fatherlessness. And once again, this is what happens. People in the conscious community, people in the church, and also people from other areas, even in the Islamic community. This is what happens when fathers are not in the home. So if you've been impacted by sexual abuse, I want you to come in. Or just, if you don't want to talk about the sexual abuse, I want you to talk about the impact of fathers not being in the homes, men or women. Ellie J, if you're there, Mickey Red, I would love to hear from the women. Click on the link if you ladies would like to come in. Also, guys, if you want to come in, let's have a conversation. Because this is important. As I said earlier, we can talk about all issues. We can talk about money, finances. We can talk about everything. But it all starts with the mind. And there's a lot of undiagnosed mental illness. Kevin Samuels, he talks about it all the time. Whether you like Kevin Samuels or not, he talks about the negative impact of mental illness in the Black community. It's what I call vicarious trauma. And that vicarious trauma has or is impacting many people. So please come in. Thank you, Tim Howard. You're doing a great job, brother. I appreciate it. And if you like what I'm doing, please like, share, or subscribe to The Kosher Clinician. Click all notification buttons. And if you don't have any money to spare, please share this content. So before the billions, Miss Red, thank you, ladies, for coming in. Thank you, sir. So I want to hear you guys' point of view. Thank you for coming in, because fatherlessness is very paramount in the Black community, and it appears to be getting worse. So I want to hear from Miss Red. I want you to give me your perspective, because this is going to be very important. What's your take on the impact of fathers in the home? And what do you think about, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, I can hear you. And what do you think about the show? Because there are a lot of broken people that are walking around, and Kevin Samuels talks about therapy all the time. And I am a licensed clinical therapist, and so what's your take on everything that we talked about in this show?
I'm glad you're doing the show.
Thank you, dear. I appreciate it.
You're a very objective man, and you're fair.
Yes.
I like it. These are things that we don't talk about in our community,
right?
Especially because what happens in the home stays in the home,
right?
And there's a lot of trauma in our community with boys and girls. Every home should be a two-parent home, or at least co-parenting, because it takes two to make one. It takes two to raise one. It actually takes a village,
right?
But the father needs to be in the home. My father and my mother, they got married and they fulfilled their vows.
Right.
And I never imagined that I would be a single mother, but relationships do not always stay together. And I ended up a single mother, and I'm a military brat. And so I grew up with a very structured and disciplined life. And I grew up knowing that good enough is not good enough.
Right.
And my father instilled in me that we are not average. Right. As a Black person, you can't be average.
Right.
So a father is very necessary in the home, because as a mother, there's certain things I can't tell my son about. There's certain things I can't understand. And at some point in a young man's life, he's gonna buck the authority. So as a single mother, I tried to be very, very strict and hard on him when he was young. But when he got older, before I sent him to my brother, he was very mad at me, because the only thing I knew is that men understood strength.
Right.
And so I tried to be stern, but then after I was stern, I would nurture him too much because I felt bad that his dad chose not to have a close relationship with him. And, you know, at some point, you know, young men stop looking to their mom for advice, and they, you know, it goes in one ear and out the other. That's where the father comes in, because he's not going to buck on his dad, or even if he does buck on his dad is going to get him back in line. Just like my brother got my oldest son back in line. You know, my oldest son was out here wilding out, doing some of everything. And my brother said, I told you last year when you called me and told me he was being unruly to send him to me, and you did it. And I didn't send him because I was like, my brother's already raised 3 children and he put them through college. You know, this is my child, my responsibility. And then my son, you know, sweet talked me and said, you know, I'm gonna do better. I'm gonna clean my act up. And I let him stay for that year. And in that year, he went mad. And he was out here doing stuff he didn't have to do. Because even though I was a single mother, I provided a very good life for him. And we live on a very good side of town. He has his college paid for. You could say, you know, his dad could say whatever he want about that child support, but that went to his college. And right now, my son don't even know if he want to go to college, but he has the opportunity to go in the military as in the Air Force as an officer. And I'm just giving him his little 6 months, and then he got to make a move, or he got to go. I don't know. But a father is very much needed, because women are supposed to be nurturing. We're supposed to be feminine. We're not supposed to be masculine. And me having to be so hard on him made him look at me a different way.
Right. No, you're 100% correct, Mickey Red. Listen, women often sabotage themselves because they're not designed to do both. You know, as a therapist, we talk about something called intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. There are things that are within us intrinsically that we're designed to do. And then the extrinsic is the environment. And so, you know, I did this show and I wanted to broach this topic because, once again, some of our women get with dusty men. They look past solid men. They get attracted to that thug love, you know, that thug penis. And so when they get attracted to that thug penis, you know, then all of a sudden when they get older, then they want to get a good man. Before the billions, I want you to highlight on this, and you know, young lion. I'll call you young lion. That's my little young lion before the billions. What's up, young homie? I want you to talk about this and give me your take on it as well. And then Elliot J, you starting a lot of fire for this piece, so I want you to pop in because you talking a lot of junk. So I want to hear your perspective as well. Go ahead, brother.
Yes, sir. So I want to say first is I'm thankful to have you for you to have me on your channel. So
yes, sir. I love you, brother. Go ahead. You're a good man.
So my perspective on it is I was just so happened to be blessed enough to actually have my dad in my life, right? But I didn't always. And I think about myself if I did not have my dad. Even to the point where, you know, because my mom and my dad, you know, they separated when I was young, when I was like 5 years old. So I pretty much grew up as an only child to a single mother for most of my life. So and I looked up to my dad. My dad was a police officer, and it wasn't until I got older where I actually was able to hang out with my dad a lot more. And then that's when I learned a lot of different lessons, and that's actually able to break a lot of those bad habits that I learned from just being only with my mom. So I did have a father figure, which was my granddad, but nothing can really replace, you know, just having like that, your dad in your life. And it even got to the point at one time, I even forgot what my dad looked like, you know. And when I got older, then now we work out, we exercise every single day with each other. And, you know, he just teaches me all these different things that keeps me out of trouble. And I always used to say, hey, you know, because my dad was a police officer, you know, that's also another reason why I was trying to stay out of trouble. Even if he wasn't there in my life, I would still like look up to him like, okay, you know what, if my dad were to see me, cursing a lot or drinking and smoking and stuff like that, because that's why I don't do those things. And I always say, hey, because my dad is the one who taught me how to, put like tie my tie or fix up my truck, put on the brakes on my truck. And I got this house. I got the degree path, which actually helped me to get my career that I'm in now, in technology. So all those different things that I can attribute to my dad, and I feel like if I didn't have him, I'd be done a great disservice by not having him. So and actually, I'll tell this story is that when I was younger, I was about probably like 10 years old, and then my mom and my dad were getting along. My mom came up to me and she was like, "Oh, if you sign these papers, then your dad won't be your dad anymore."
Right.
And I remember crying about it. I was like, I really, of course, I want my dad to be in my life, but then it seemed more like it was something that she wanted versus me. I want my dad to be living with us. That's what I want. But then, well, she was bringing up like, oh, your dad ain't about this and that, and then but you don't really know how your dad is unless you actually are around him. And then, luckily, I was able to um, learn a lot of lessons from him, even about how to respect other people and then also respect other people's time. So that's kind of my perspective on it. I do see that, hey, if I didn't have my dad, I would be angry, right? I would not know how to do a lot of things. When I didn't have my dad, I had no confidence in myself. Now I have more confidence because not only am I learning a lot of things, I'm achieving a lot of things based off things he's taught me,
Right.
but also because I have attained some level of myself, of knowing myself from knowing my dad and also my dad's family. So yeah, that's kind of my perspective on it.
Right, right. And what you're seeing now, more or less percolating in a lot of relationships, is what I said earlier, is a condition called displaced aggression. And so displaced aggression occurs when people take the pain and the anger from the things that they went through, and they place that aggression towards the target that was unintended. And so, these conversations are very important because there's a lot of brokenness in the Black community. A lot of men and women have reached a shadow point. And so you got a lot of women that are walking around with borderline personality disorders. A lot of women tend to have that diagnosis, and men tend to have the narcissistic personality disorder. It tends to be more so in men. Ellie J, I want you to come on, dear. I want you to face your fears. You were talking a lot of junk, so I want you to come on. Turn your avatar on. I want to hear your perspective. We don't have to see your face. And then Black girls getting their shift together. I love your perspective, dear. So come on as well, because these conversations are important. Now, listen, you guys like what I'm doing, share this content. There's nothing else more important in the world than getting the mind right. As I said earlier, I'll say it for the fourth time. We can talk about money. We can talk about finances. We can talk about the family court system. We can talk about legal issues. But if the mind is impacted, then the body is impacted. And so a lot of people that have went through trauma have more or less developed what's called somatoform disorders. Soma means body, and psyche means mind. And so their bodies become impacted by trauma. Sometimes they can have something called a conversion disorder due to trauma. So Ellie J, I want to ask you this question. How do women sabotage themselves in relationships as it relates to their children? I want you to be honest.
You talking to me?
Yes, I'm talking to you. Yes. How do
because how do we sabotage? It depends.
Right.
It depends. I'm a woman that's cut from a different cloth. But I do sabotage myself. Cause I've been through some things, and when I was younger, I would shy away from the good guys that wanted to, the good guys that weren't my family members because of the experiences I had at 13 and 14. The good guys that would try to love me, I would kind of push them away because it would be like, what is this treatment? Why are you being so nice to me? What are you going to do to me? It was foreign. And I ran from that. but that was after that was after my trauma. That was after I thought I had healed from my trauma.
Right.
But in actuality, I never really healed. And it's just been within the last 8 years that I really tried to address it. Because as Black people, and as you know, we're taught that, you know, bad things happen and there's some things you can't do about it, but you can't keep crying over the spilt milk. You got to clean it up, push it down, and move on. And that's what I did for most of my adult life. But I'll say when I turned 15, that's where things switched for me, because I saw this rapper. Her name was MC Smooth, and she was the female Mac. And so I said, I'm never going to allow myself to get in a situation where I can be taken advantage of. And so, you know, I picked up a lot of bad habits and tendencies from the community. And so I sabotage myself because I overthink. I be trying to say, DMX had, like, I had an epiphany. DMX said that one thing, and he was like, you trust a snake to be a snake and a cheater to be a cheater, a liar to be a liar, but you know the difference. But I didn't know the difference. All I saw was always looking for the snake. I was always looking for people's ulterior motives. You know what I mean? I wanted to see the good in them. Like in my relationships, I would see the good in the guys, and I would date their potential. And then the good guys that really had it going on, it, like I said, it would be like, I would look for something, because it would be like, oh no, you can't be this person for real. Where's the angle? Where's the motive? What are you trying to do? And some of them had motives. Some of them, it was exactly what I thought it was. And sometimes it wasn't.
Well, Chicago Rilla says, MC Smooth, you played me on Menace to Society soundtrack. You familiar with that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's it, right. And so these discussions are paramount because, you know, I said it earlier that a lot of our women in Mickey Red have been more or less compromised by liberal policies. They've been compromised because they believe that they could do it alone without fathers. And you saw the rate by Prager University when Black families were more intact. We were more intact during slavery than we are now. About over 73% of our kids are being born out of wedlock. I mean, and that's unfortunate, because how can you have a strong, vibrant community and healthy children when you have this epidemic? You know, before the billions, Barack Obama wrote a book called Lessons from Our Father. What were the lessons that you learned from your mother and how she treated your dad after they broke up? And you share only what you want to share.
Right. So some of the lessons, I learned a lot from my mom too, right? She's a very knowledgeable woman. And some of those things that I've learned, I'll go into the good things I've learned, right? Is I learned a lot of things such as like life skills, right? I learned a lot of life skills from my mom, such as, you know, I know how to iron clothes, I know how to cook, I know how to, you know, do things as far as like laundry, stuff like that. And then I also learned a lot of things such as how to deal with people as well. Some certain things like, you know, if I was going through something with, you know, at school, she'd be like, "Oh, don't let anybody take advantage of you." You know, those kinds of things. Don't let anybody, you know, hit on you and stuff like that. And also, you know, a lot of things such as like when I was dealing with girls in high school and middle school and stuff like that. Like, hey, you know, I've been that guy, you know, the nice guy uh who girls just did not like, right? Back in high school. And I even remember this one time where, you know, some girl was like, "Oh, you know, my name is William." And they were like, "Oh yeah, William, he's a nice guy. He's gonna have a great career going on later in life. He's gonna have this and that. He looks like a good guy. But I just don't like him." You know, it'd be something like that.
Right,
So
right.
And then, when you grow up and then all those things actually do happen, then they say, oh, well, congratulations for all your success. And, now I'm in a relationship with somebody who actually appreciates all those things
Right.
that other people did not.
Well,
But,
I'm sorry, go ahead, brother. I'm
oh,
sorry.
yeah, but, and that's just more so on the good things my mom taught me. So the bad things, right, is, like I was soft, right? Like extremely emotional when I was going through high school, or when I was younger, and that really did affect me terribly, to where I did not have the confidence that I should have had, because not only was I being active, I was doing things within school, doing things within life. I had a great head on my shoulders, right? But like, hey, I just did not believe in myself. And that's something that I would have done, just like how you said earlier with Tupac, where he said that he had his mom, but then he did not have the confidence. He would have more confidence if he had his dad in his life, and he
Right.
would have made better decisions. So me, like, I made poor decisions in high school sometimes when dealing with people, but then I learned over time. And
Right.
my dad kind of put me on game to a lot of things after I got a little older.
Right, right. Casual observers said respectfully, Black women from all walks of life will confess to self-destructive mating choices. The sources of every issue plaguing the Black community is the self-destructive tendency. And I tend to agree with that in part. Mickey Red, you look like you're from the 90s. You look like you're a Gen Xer like me. Are you from the 90s? What year did you come out of high school?
79, 97.
Oh, damn, you damn Harold Melvin the
I'm
Blue
a
Notes.
Generation X as well.
you Harold Melvin in the Blue Notes. I'm trying to give you
Woo, woo, woo.
you Harold Melvin the Blue Notes. You old school. But the casual observer is right. What's your take on that sentiment? Because many women look past good men in their 20s, and now they're frustrated. They're frustrated. So what's your take on that?
They're frustrated about the choices they make, because I've never been a sack chaser. That's never been my claim to fame.
Mm-hmm.
I've dealt with men that had money, that had status and all this and that, but my selections have been not good. Not when I was younger, I would go for what I want. And now that I'm older and wiser, I know I need to go for what I need in a man.
Right.
And what I want. I actually, when I told you that I had to send my son to my brother, and so when I went to pick up, because he said at the summertime, go ahead and send me both your boys. And so my youngest one came down in the summer, so we went to go pick him up, and my brother straightened me. I call him Joe Clark. Joe Clark straightened me as well. And I had one brother tell me something similar, and then I had to just, my oldest brother, I ain't no speaking. He gonna tell me what he think. He asked me a question. That's when I speak. Otherwise, keep my mouth closed and get this straightening. And he said, men have been your downfall. And I sat at the table and I looked at him and I shut up and let him continue. And I thought about it and I said, he's right. He's right. Had the ideals that my mother and my father and my grandmother imparted on me about selecting a mate, if I wouldn't have thought they were old fashioned, I would have selected the right mate in the beginning.
Right.
But I thought those were old fashioned, out of date. And then even my dad didn't agree with me moving in with my oldest son's father. We were engaged. Mm-hmm. He said, no, I want you to marry out my house. And I said, well, you let my older brother and my other brother move out and move in with a woman. They were shacking. I'm engaged. What's the difference? And he says, you a woman.
Right.
I was like, that's not fair. And he's like, look, why is that man going to buy the cow when he gets the milk for free?
Right.
And I was like, but I'm engaged, Daddy. I'm engaged. And if I would have listened to my daddy, I could have saved myself a lot of heartache. But my path was mine to take. I made those decisions, and I had to lay in the bed I made. But had I listened to my father and my grandmother, I would have picked I would have married well. That
Right. And I tell people all the time that mute yourself there. I tell the people all the time that the sexes are not symmetrical. Men and women don't think the same. They never have, and they never will. And that's what people mess up at. I promise you, every young lady at some point met the man of her dreams. She met the man that should have been her husband, but she looked past him. And so now, like Cat Williams said, back then they didn't want me. Now hot chicks, they'd all. And the guys are saying, look, I'm good now because you didn't show me love when I wanted you. So I'm established now. I got my swag game on point. Before the building, Leo like me, and they're saying whatever. But Mrs. Black girls getting their shit together. What's up, sister? How you doing? I love you. How you doing, sister?
I'm well. How's everyone doing?
Right, we're doing great. We love your mesmerizing voice. Someone actually said he loved your energy. The show that we did about the stigmatization between therapy. He said, man, she's a beautiful spirit. So kudos to you. So what's your take on this? Black girls getting their shit together about we talk about the importance of trauma due to sexual abuse. We talk about Brother Polite in the conscious community. We talked about Eddie Long and also Dr.MalikYork, but also what's his name? R. Kelly, that was a victim, and he was also a predator. What's your take on that loaded question?
Well, I can definitely have a take on the R. Kelly situation as far as I believe trauma is the gift that keeps giving, no matter on which side. From my understanding, he was assaulted, correct?
Yes, he was molested.
Okay, well then that makes total sense.
Right.
Yeah, and it's just like family heirlooms. You just pass it down, and I believe our community, we don't talk about it enough. It's swept under the rug, and it's that hush your mouth, don't say anything. Meanwhile, I mean, full disclosure, I've never had that experience, but the more people I'm talking to, it is a lot more
It's a lot of people. Yes, ma'am.
thought.
Yes, it is.
And then when I have people, right. So when I'm finished with my podcast, I'll see people, they'll come up in my inbox and they'll let me know that they experienced that, or even friends. And it's so disheartening. Right. And then I see how it trickles down into the way they date and or what kind of partners they pick. And it's so sad. But once again, I just believe our Black community, we don't talk about anything.
Right.
We just don't.
Yes, ma'am, we don't. And that's why I had to do this show, because, I grew up very conservative. You and I talked in the past when I was on your show, and I wasn't here to denigrate the church because I grew up Church of God in Christ. I grew up Pentecostal holiness. I grew up in it. I might not live by it like I used to, but I did grow up in it. And there were some good things. They were good and bad. But church abuse, as it relates to grooming, unfortunately, Eddie Long is dead. You're up in, I think, in the southern, in the peach state of Georgia, and you see a lot of times. You've seen a lot of times the impact of.
There's an echo.
Yeah, there's an echo. I don't know whose it is. Is it me or you? That's right. Can you hear me?
I can.
Guys, mute your mic, please. Mute your mic. But you guys. But you, I don't know what that is. Somebody trying to get their victim.
Someone's playing some Mahalia in the background.
Somebody trying to get their praise through. But Black girls getting the shit. You've seen the negative impact of church abuse, and like I say, I'm not here to denigrate the church because there's some good churches doing the right thing, but we know there's some predatory churches too. And so we both grew up in that, in the church background. But, hearing all of this, how does it resonate from the stories you heard from some of your girlfriends?
As far as the abuse?
As far as the abuse and just a whole psychic chain of brokenness that you're seeing.
Oh, well, sex repulses them. we'll have our conversation, nothing in depth, but I see that the sex, the topic, anything, it's repulsing.
Right.
They don't want to talk about it. And I did not know that until doing what I do now. It makes so much sense. And then on the flip side, I've seen where some people I know, they've been extremely promiscuous.
Right. Right.
So, and then that's the trickle down effect, just like with R. Kelly. And extremely, he takes two Rilla. Yeah, with the trickle down effect of it, it doesn't look good. Let me say that.
No,
Yeah.
it doesn't look good. And, and it's unfortunate because I'm not trying to more or less exonerate or free R. Kelly, but R. Kelly was a victim too. And you're correct. People become what's called hyposexual, which means they have a low sex drive, or they become very prudish towards sex, or they can become what's called hypersexual when they become very predatory. It impacts different people different ways, and we don't want to talk about that. It's almost like people assume that sexual abuse is a female crime, but no, it's genderless. It happens to boys and girls, and it happens a lot of times. Just like these young men in Eddie Long's church were groomed, it happens a lot of times. Black girls getting their shit together when you don't have strong masculine fathers that can guide and protect their kids. Men more or less date or do things based on pragmatism. We can see ahead. That's why when we did our show, we talked about provision. Women a lot of times think based on their feelings. They can only see in the here and now. And just like Ellie said, Ellie J said, she said, I married my high school sweetheart. I divorced him after I read the book Women Who Love Too Much by Robin Norwood. See, self-sabotage. My kids were 2.5, 4 and 5. 2, I don't know what that is. 2.5.
2 and 4.5.
2 and 4.5. No, I didn't listen to my father either. Do you see my point? Then listen. And so we keep trying to equivocate that men and women are the same, and we're not the same. We're wired different. We do things different, and it's okay. The sexes do things different. And so what's the most challenging and daunting thing that you've heard from one of your girlfriends about men or women about sexual abuse? And also, not only sexual abuse, but abuse of power in the church.
They didn't feel protected. And that came from, of course, the higher ups, the clergy. And then they did not feel safe, or their parents didn't protect them, or their guardian, whoever was taking care of them, they did not protect them. So they felt abandoned, because they didn't know who to go to, because every time they tried to talk to someone, the door was shut in their face. And they had parents who didn't want to talk about it. They wanted to keep sweeping everything under the rug because they wanted to save face for their church members. So they never felt safe at all.
Right.
And then they're not trusting anyone. They didn't trust men. They didn't trust their parents. They didn't trust clergy. Abandonment everywhere.
I don't know if you've had people on your show, because I know your show centers around healing and therapy, but there's a such thing called child sexual abuse, or more or less the sex rings, when kids more or less get impacted by the sexual abuse rituals. Right. And a lot of times these kids become victims of dissociative personality disorders, which is borderline, which is multiple personality disorders. But also,
how does that look? What does that look like?
Right. So dissociative, they form what's called alters, right? And they form alter egos. They form that Black girls getting their shit together to protect their fragile subconscious. So a lot of times they develop what's called alters, and they get what's called different personalities based on what they've been through, based on the trauma. And so a lot of times that's due to their mind breaking or going through what's called depersonalization, where they feel like they're no longer a person, or the realization where they feel like they can't believe that it happened to them, almost like being surreal when you get into a bad accident. And also sexual abuse can lead to post-traumatic stress disorder. It can lead to all four. And so these shows are important. And I like I said, I wanted to do this show because, like I said, so many of our people are walking around like walking time bombs because they don't know how to address the pathology that they've dealt with or is dealing with.
Hmm. Why do you think our community sweeps it under the rug so much?
Well, they sweep it under the rug because of ignorance, one, and two. Therapy has not always been seen as a safe haven or an appropriate option. Many times when Black folks will go to a therapist, they would say, quote unquote, "You're crazy as hell," and so therapy was more or less stigmatized. But you hear Kevin Samuels talking about it a lot. You hear other people talking about it. You hear even famous people talking about the importance and the impact of therapy. Caucasians know it, understand it, and they respect it. But unfortunately, in our community, we tend to minimize it. And like I said, before the billions, I don't know if you've dated, but I'm sure some guys in this audience have more or less dated women that were victims, and they developed what's called borderline personality disorder, but also histrionic personality disorders. Some of them have developed that. So have you ever dated a woman before the billions that probably had borderline personality disorder, to your knowledge?
Have I ever?
I was asking before the billions.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, to my knowledge, no, I do not think that anybody had borderline personality disorder, but I have dated people who have been abused, or who have been victims, and I found out later on. So and it kind of leads into exactly what you were saying earlier, as if you've been victimized, it is a lot more prevalent than you would actually think. Like I'll say, I wouldn't give like a number, but I'll say probably like maybe 2 or 3 out of 10 people that probably are experience some sort of victimization, probably even more than that. It might
Right.
just be an understatement of it.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah, but to answer your question, probably. But to my knowledge, I don't know anybody who actually does have borderline personality disorder.
Right, right. It can happen in men and women, but it tends to happen mostly in women. And a lot of times it's due to trauma. Just like the narcissistic personality disorder tend to be more so in men. And all of those are ego coping defense mechanisms. It's a way to protect the ego from the trauma that they've been through. And that's why getting diagnosed is so important. And that's why getting the proper therapy is important. And listen, to the guys that are listening, if you like what I'm doing, for a non-diagnostic consultation, I'm not going to diagnose you because you're not my patient, but I can give you parameters around your diagnosis. Please see me at kosherclinician@gmail.com. See me at kosherclinician@gmail.com. And let's have a discussion, because these topics are very paramount. And also, if you like what I'm doing, please hit the Cash App. Remember, I am a licensed therapist, and these shows are extremely time consuming.
Yes.
But because I love, Erica Shake, she know what I'm talking about. But because I love the brotherhood, because I love good sisters like Black girls getting their shit together, I take the time out of my busy schedule to produce these shows. The show that I'm doing now took me hours yesterday to produce. So if you like what I'm doing, donate to Cash App. Donate, because listen, we can donate to other channels for this poppycock, and just talking about anything, and that's your right to do what you want to do. But it appears to me a lot of time the things that we need the most, we don't support the most. We'll support salacious stuff like gossip or sports or anything else. But when it comes down to the healing of the mind, we don't support that. And so you got a licensed therapist giving you guys some free game that most people can charge you $200 an hour to do, but I'm doing it for free because I care about you. So show your love and support by donating to $, or Cash App, $7 Smalls. And let's have a discussion. And if you don't have anything to give, share this content with at least 20 people. Tell them to hit, share, subscribe, and like. Hit the notification button, because these shows are very important. Black girls getting their shit together. You do a lot of work, and go check out her channel too. Check out Before the Billions. He has a channel on Forex and trading. Go check his channel out, and go check out my dear friend Black Girls Getting Their Shit Together. I want you to tell the audience what you do as it relates to healing of the mind, and share what you like about how trauma impacted you in the past as well.
Oh my God, where do I start with the trauma? So I grew up with a parent who is, because they are still around, narcissistic. And so what I grew up, I suffered from emotional and verbal abuse. And did not know that I was repeating the cycle in dating men who were emotionally unavailable. Does that sound familiar? I'm sure you've heard that in your professional career.
And go check out the show called Mental Death. Black Girls Getting Their Shit Together did an awesome job. But go ahead. I'm gonna call you BG.
That's fine. And so that's what it was, an ongoing cycle. So it's funny dating this another narcissistic man. We go into couples counseling, didn't work because you need two to make it work. And little did I know I should have been in individual counseling and getting some therapy. So that was the trauma response I had, was just always looking for love, having that anxious attachment.
Right.
That's the best way I can describe it. And not anymore. A solid, secure, firm attachment.
But that's good. You did the shallow work. You did what was necessary to help you heal. And, I think a lot of our women and men are walking around once again broken because they have a lot of undiagnosed mental illness. And, I tell people you don't have to like everything Kevin Samuels says, but he says some good points. There are a lot of people that are broken. There's a lot of undiagnosed mental illness. And until they understand where that brokenness came from, then they're not going to get help. You look at some of the great singers like David Ruffin from The Temptations. David Ruffin, actually, his grandparents is from my hometown. I'm from rural northeastern North Carolina. David Ruffin grandparents are from rural eastern North Carolina. I didn't even know. I was shocked.
Really?
Oh, yes, ma'am. But David Ruffin was a victim of trauma and abuse because he was beat to death a lot of times. And so sometimes because of that abuse and trauma, people self-medicate, they become over-sexual. They do a myriad of different things because they didn't deal with the undiagnosed pathology that's impacted them in a negative way. And so, we got to have these discussions. I'm going to do more shows like this. I know I ain't going to get no views from it because, Black, we tend not to like stuff that's good for us.
Cousins don't like therapy. Come on now.
Right. We don't. we tend to like stuff. We don't like the stuff that's good for us. We like the things that are bad for us. I'm trying to give folks kosher stuff, but they want hog chitlins and pig feet. But I'm trying to give them some lean kosher meat.
But may I interject?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
I hear where you're coming from, but you know what? Continue to keep doing what you're doing because our community needs so much healing because we're already, look how traumatized we are and we're still powerful. We get some straight up knowledge and some healing that will take our powerfulness above and beyond. So yeah, keep doing it. I get what you're saying though, as far as some people may not be too palatable, but it is so needed in our community.
Before the billions, thank you. You tried to send a generous cash. I don't know what happened, but you can always try again. It said try to go through, but it failed. So I don't know. Yeah, it said failed. So, but thank you, brother. But like I said, share this content. I'm honored that we had the discussion. Shout out to Chicago Rilla. Look forward to joining you guys tomorrow on the King Talk. We're going to chop up some critical game because we need healing of the mind. And so, one of the things that trauma does a lot of times, guys, when people are traumatized, it can also impact the neural circuitry in the brain. One of the things of my entry point to my show, I says fire for your mind. So when there's fire in your mind, your brain becomes awakened and your cognitions are aware. But if you're traumatized, then trauma can impact the mental circuitry in the brain. That's why neuroscience is so important as it relates to trauma. But once that mind is opened up and that schema is broken, then when I say fire for your mind becomes enlightened due to the healing. And then you can see those negative cognitions that you dealt with. And cognition basically means awareness, And so there's a lot of unawareness in our community that needs to be addressed. And thank you, Chicago Rilla. You're right. Now we like meat, not milk. You're doing the Lord's work, King. Salute you, brother. I love you, man. Thank you for having me on the show last week. And I'm going to definitely do it again. We got to grow. I got to grow this channel. I got to grow this brand because, like I said, we can talk about anything else, but the mind is messed up. Everything else is messed up. So listen, go subscribe to Before the Billions. And then, Erica, drop your link. We want to drop your link so they can subscribe to your channel, too, because you're doing some good things. Go subscribe to my man, William, for Before the Billions. On from there. Before the Billions. That's his YouTube channel. Wim, I want you to tell the audience about your channel. And then also Erica, Ursula, oh my God, call you all kinds of names. Black girls getting.
Wait, do it again. Hit your face again. All
right, now you don't. I hope you ain't trying to slap me for no unresolved trauma.
No.
She said, slap it again, slap it again. She trying to turn me to Sylvester off Bugs Bunny.
Do you want to hear something funny?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
That's my father's name too.
Oh, is it Sylvester?
It's in South Georgia.
God, that's Sylvester. Lord have mercy. That's like something back in the day, back in Mississippi. Come here, Sylvester. Sylvester, come here. Like Lester Earl. Lester Earl and Sylvester.
Oh my God.
Lester Earl. But before the Billions, tell them about your channel real quick, brother, and tell them how your channel is beneficial to helping Black people.
Yes, sir. What's up, everybody? This is William from Before the Billions. I am a professional data engineer, and I go through a lot of videos on how to help you to get into the tech industry. I also do several discussions and also interviews. I actually had an interview on Sunday where I interviewed 3 brothers from Carolina University, and they are starting their own mobile app, which is the first ever mobile grooming delivery app. So please go check out my channel, and I will see you on the next video.
No doubt, no doubt. Anyway, Hubba Bubba, tell them about your channel.
Hey, everybody, this is Hubba Bubba here. It's Black girls getting their shift together. And it's about the shift, the mind shift, and how we can rewire our brain. It's about mental health and wellness in the Black community. And wellness is a huge umbrella. It can go anywhere from mental health and wellness to sexual wellness to financial wellness. It's all about learning different new info. And all the guests, they look like us.
Right.
So that we don't feel like we have to go to a clearer hue. We're doing the same thing too. So you can tune in every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'm also a transformational life coach. So, you want to get some tools to excel, propel your mindset. Hit me up. Hit me up.
No doubt, no doubt, no doubt. If anyone else would like to come on and talk about the shadow point, because shadow point comes when the mind is broken due to trauma. And normally people that go through a shadow point, just like the Jedis in Star Wars, they turn to the dark side. There are many men and women that have been impacted due trauma, and they've crossed over into the dark side. I believe that R. Kelly got broken through a shadow point. And there are a lot of other people that have been broken through a shadow point due to trauma. So once again, if you like the show, please like, share, and subscribe. Before the Billions, don't forget me, bro. I'm a Leo, so you got to look up for us Leos, man. That love offering. Don't forget the love offering. And, and if anybody else would like this to bless me, by all means, please do. Before we end, if anyone else want to come on and talk about trauma, come on and talk. What's up to my dear Scorpio sister? That's Sister Gail. Sister Gail is everywhere. She's like a
she is.
I don't know how she do it. She's the Black Santa Claus.
Best moderator on the planet.
Oh, she's the best moderator on the planet. I love Gail.
Yeah, she's my moderator too.
Right, I love Gail. Yeah, we need to take up a love art for Gail at some point too.
I'm gonna have to hit Gail up too.
Right,
I see her everywhere.
Yeah, I don't know how she do it, man. She's so sweet. She is so sweet. But like I was saying, guys, if you like what I'm doing, subscribe to my channel, but also share the content and go support Black girls getting their shit together. And also Before the Billions, please go do that. Black girls getting their shit together, and also Before the Billions. And so, Mr. Chameleon, hello, brother. Coach Hope, all is well. I'm a new subscriber. I saw you on the Pete Let's Talk, and I've been, no doubt, love you, brother. Thank you. Listen, I plan on doing even more Live It content. This is just the beginning. I want to get to the next level like everyone else. I want to grow this brand. I want to empower men and women, and I want to teach women what they need to do in order to get the kind of men that they want. And sometimes the things that men say, you might not like it, but if you want the raw truth, if you want it to be kosher, we're gonna give it to you raw. You might not like it, but we're gonna give it to you raw. Chicago Realist said, Gail, Lord have mercy.
So I just tried to Cash App you again, but it keeps rejecting. I don't know why.
Oh, really? What are you putting in?
I put in
We-
7 smalls.
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. Don't. It's $sign Cash App 7 smalls. Let me put the link down real quick. Real quick. Let me put the link. So real quick, before the billions, what did you get from this show? How did it? You were really involved in the show. You seem like you really enjoyed it. What did you get from the show, and tell me how it was beneficial?
Yeah, so I actually learned a lot, especially when you were going over a lot of the trauma that a lot of not only young Black women but also young Black men have endured, especially when you went through and showed those clips of the victims of Eddie Long and also R. Kelly, and also I didn't know that Mark Lamont Hill had went through that kind of situation as well. Actually, seeing him on TV and didn't even know all those kind of things about his actual personal life. So yeah, learned a lot from that, and I'm glad that I was able to come on and also kind of give a different perspective.
Right.
Because like I'm the only guy who joined, right? So you kind of get the man's perspective outside of just yourself.
Right.
So I think that not only the opportunity to come on and also share with everybody else, like, hey, this is what it's like, because exactly what you were saying, like the guy who may have grown up and may have been passed over, they can grow up and then succeed in life and then be able to get back to the community as well. So, and I plan to be a good Black man who takes care of his family. So I'm not going to be, one of those kind of guys who will be abusing anybody, right?
Right. No doubt. Respect. I respect that 100%. The link is to the bottom, guys. If you want to donate to the channel, please do. We're trying to grow this brand, and we're trying to save one soul at a time. And so when we have these shows intention. I'm so honored. This is my first live stream solo. I'm gonna start doing a lot more than one. You got to have nerves to do this one-on-one because you start stuttering and stammering. But the Lord is willing. And when I get around good people like Sister Black Girl getting their shit together, she tends to calm me down. She got that Mahalia Jackson. She got that soothing power.
Mahalia.
Like Mahalia Jackson. She got that. So this is the link. Click on the link, guys, if you want to donate. And so let me see what B Nizzle. Shout out to B Nizzle. Okay, he up there having fun. All right. So thank you, Tim Howe. Tim Howe is awesome too. I love Tim. Tim is everywhere too. Tim got about 20 wrenches. But I love Tim. Tim is a great man. He's on different channels. And salute to that brother, and much love to him. And I'm going to do a show soon. There's going to be a shocker. You guys going to love this one, but I'm going to keep it on the wraps. But
can we get a hint? Can we get a little hint? Give us a little sprinkle, kosher clinician.
Well, I'll give you a little sprinkle after the show. How about that?
Okay, that sounds good. I'll stay on.
You got a back pass. You got a stage pass, but I'm gonna need a stage pass. All right. And Gail said, "Wag, Chicago Rilla." I don't know what that means. Gail here, wild. All right, but anyway, if anybody else want to come on, I got people to see. I got clients to see. But anybody else want to come on? If not, we're going to end it. But this was an awesome show. This will be the first of many. Once again, these shows are very time consuming. It took me about 3 hours, 4 or 5 hours to do this show. I put a lot of work into this show. And so if you don't have anything to give, please share this content with as many people. To the 14 people that are listening, I want you to hit 1 if you plan to share this content. To the 14 that are listening, please hit 1. Please hit 1 if you're going to share, or if you have already, actually, if you shared it, please hit 1. So when you share it, hit 1, and then we're going to sign off. All right. So when you share it, hit 1. All right. So William, you told me what you got out of it. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, brother. Thank you before the billion. And also, William, before the billion, make sure you check. Click on the link again. The link that I sent you, did it go through?
Yeah. So I just had to give you what my cash balance was. So that actually looks to be that it went through.
Okay, great. All right, great, brother. All right. So it's about 23 minutes after the hour, 12 o'clock. This is dedicated to the Leo Nation. Black girl's getting the shit together, said she wanted to see it. So let me sign off, and we're gonna add this little stream real quick, and we're gonna sign off. So here we go. This is to the Leo Nation. To the Leo Nation. Be well, be good, fellas, sisters and brothers. All right.
keep God first. I see evil, I evil when I converse.
Not today, say.
This how God works. Play my position, what is given with no concerns. Set it off. Top of the morning, I'm gonna set it off. You living boring, I'm gonna set it off. Shooting, I'm scoring, I'm gonna set it off. Like soldiers torn, I'm gonna set it off. Son of God, no, I am not son of man. Blessings keep falling, the fingers keep coming in. I got you, but just know I'm texting like Uncle Sam. Left to the bank, you know that I'm coming in. We don't do it for the bands though, we don't do it for the clout. Legacy on the line, so I'm moving in and out. Seen good ones turn top dog, greedy ones get knocked off. I keep looking at the bench like I could never not ball. Coach keep me in the game, Curry deadly with the range. I keep looking in the mirror like, who is he? I'm insane. Who am I? He insane. Guess I ain't the one to blame. What's done is done, won't change. Time to live up to my name. Real will be real, fake gon' fall. Took time with this here, I'm made for a while. No sleep in the while, I won't fall. No sleep in the while, I won't lead out. I keep God first. I see evil, I evil when I converse.
Not today, say.
This how God works. Play my position, what is given with no concerns. Set it off. Top of the morning, I'm gonna set it off. You living boring, I'm gonna set it off. Shooting, I'm scoring, I'm gonna set it off. Like soldiers torn, I'm gonna set it off. Told my baby, meet me at the bank. Told my mama, I'ma break the trend. Locked in, I'ma change the weight. Working for my baby's kids. Hard times couldn't make the rent. Working hard couldn't save a cent. Lonely nights, just me and God. Swear to him, always made the ends. Grab a paper, see the news. Hate coming by the tools. Walk a mile in my shoes. Something you could never do. Got my back against the wall. Bet I always pull through. Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? Sending shots, I block 'em. Superman with the moves. Rock 'em, sock 'em, drop, pop 'em. Play to win, never lose. Run it up, I top 'em. Play full belly too. I hip hop or pop 'em. Anything I could do. The real won't be real, fake gon' fall. Took time with this here, I made for a while. No sleep in the while, I won't fall. No sleep in the while, I won't lead out. I keep God first. I see evil, I evil when I converse.
Not today, say.
This how God works. Play my position, what is given with no concerns. Set it off. Top of the morning, I'm gonna set it off. You living boring, I'm gonna set it off. Shooting, I'm scoring, I'm gonna set it off. Like soldiers torn, I'm gonna set it off.
supply, all that tires. Look, it's a surprise, don't deny us. She telling me she want to be my lover, yeah. I love you when she want to be my lover, yeah. My little baby go rise on me. My little baby go right on me. Maria, Maria, Maria. Every time you're looking out for me. Every time you're looking out for me. Love you, yeah.
Everything go from Maria, yeah, yeah. Sensibility, yeah, yeah. Pretty girl like a Maria, Maria, yeah, yeah. Every time we meet up, every time we like oh, Maria, Maria.
Every time you look up for me, every time you look up for me, every time you look up for me, every time you look up for me.
She no island girl, she from Kilimanjaro, Kiliman, no, she no island girl, she from Kilimanjaro, Kilimanjaro.
My little baby go rise on me, my little baby go right on me. Maria, Maria, Maria. Every time you're looking out for me, every time you're looking out for me. Love you, yeah.
Everything go from Maria, yeah. Sensibility, yeah. Pretty girl like a Maria, Maria, yeah. Every time we meet up, every time we like oh, Maria, Maria. Now you want to spend more time with me, do you want to be my wife, baby? I just want you in my life, baby. I like you, everything go from Maria. Maria, Maria, yeah. Every time we meet up, every time we like oh, Maria, Maria.
Every time you look at me.
In the morning, you got me up all cause you need to talk. To 4 in the evening, wanna break up, say that you've had enough. I'm tired of talking, again and again, argue about everything. You are my darling, let's kiss and make up, I know you wanna touch. You call me every night, call me every day, I just wanna get you alone now.